Hello, my name is Jodi Low, and this is the Leadership Lowdown, powered by the BBB and U Improved. The Leadership Lowdown cuts through the clutter and gets to the heart of what makes businesses tick. We want to share the stories that matter to you, all of the successes and triumphs and all of the pitfalls, and everything that happens in between. So with that, let's get on to today's show. Welcome to the Leadership Lowdown. My name is Jodi Low, and I am so thrilled to have David with us from
Tri-City Transmission and Auto Repair.
Woot woot.
Yes.
So I have to be forthcoming. David and I just recently met, and so I don't have a long history with you. However, in the short time we've gotten to chit chat, I'm loving just learning about you and your business and how you got involved in all of this. So David was actually just sharing with me off camera a little bit about the journey. So tell us a little bit about I know you grew up here in Arizona and since a young tot, 2 years old.
Yep,
is that right?
2 years old.
That's awesome. And so a Phoenix native. And then what was sort of your trajectory going to school and then getting into the auto business?
Well, when I got out of high school, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I thought, well, maybe I could be a teacher. A school teacher came up, and then I also considered, well, my dad's into business. Maybe I should be a business guy.
Yeah.
And then I also liked working on cars.
Yeah.
So I really got all three.
Yeah.
So
you got to put it all together.
Put it all together. I
love
get to teach, get to work with cars, and So
teach. Tell us about that.
I did a lot of training for industry. So I do industry speaker in the transmission. It's the Automatic Transmission Rebuilders Association. So I do a lot with that.
Okay.
And then, I did car talk on KTAR for almost a decade.
Which is so cool. You are so comfortable in front of a mic.
Yeah,
I love it.
Some people run for the microphone, and then some people run from the microphone.
Yes.
So I'm the one that runs for it.
I like it. You're my people.
Yes.
And so you did that for 10 years and obviously talking all things automotive, I'm sure. And then not doing that anymore and just strictly focused on your business and growing your business and
on the shop and people. I've got a 20-year-old, so he certainly doesn't want to be in the auto repair business, but he works for me during the summers and part-time during the week. He's a sophomore at ASU.
Nice.
So that's fun, and just growing the crew. I've been at it now, I think, 18 years.
Wow. So tell us a little about that journey. What got you into it, or what sort of sparked it enough that it became a career path?
Yeah, I always loved cars. So I was into Jeeps as a kid. I rebuilt engines by the time I was probably 14. Dirt bikes and go-karts and stuff like that. I got into that, and then I ended up managing a tire store at 32nd Street in Shea.
Okay.
And I did that. I was 22 years old. I worked around the clock. I probably worked a lot harder than I should. Had some pretty good success at it, but burned myself out fairly quickly. So I left the business and I went and sold industrial HVAC equipment for about 4 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I came down with multiple sclerosis. So that was like a whammo, that was a real life changer.
Holy cow.
And then I decided, well, who's going to pay me to be sick? Because it was literally 3 months before I got back to work. And I'm like, I'm going to have to buy my own business.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, what do I know? Oh, I know auto repair. So one day I'm driving home from my job, and I'm driving by Tri-City Transmission. And I was like, I know those guys. I sold them some equipment. I should ask them if they'll sell me the place.
Because everybody does that. Everybody just drives down the street and says, I should see if I could buy that place today.
Yeah, so I walked in, and it was two 50-50 partners. They had been at it 35 years, and I didn't know how to ask somebody to buy their business. But I'm like, hey, you guys look about the age to retire. And they're like, yeah, thanks a lot. And I'm like, well.
Hey, now you just insulted us, but okay. We'll go with this.
Will you sell me the business? And so we talked and got lunches for about a year, and then it happened.
That is
how I got into it.
Incredible. So a diagnosis is what made you think, gosh, I need to kind of own my time and own my schedule. And
yes.
Wow, that is wild.
And I think the exact opposite is true because I've never worked harder.
You're like, wait a minute, this sort of backfired. My plan did not go as
planned.
It
totally backfired. It has been absolutely the hardest thing I've had to do, but the biggest source of growth and meaningfulness in my life.
I would venture to guess. So tell us about that. You bought the business. Was it most of the team stayed with you, or did you have to rebuild from scratch, or what did that look like?
No, it's terrible. I mean,
Like, let me tell you what not to do.
So I bought the business, and I mean, I was a general repair technician, so I knew about transmissions. I had changed them out and that kind of stuff, but I didn't really know the transmission business.
Right.
I thought, well, tire business, mechanic business, transmission can't be that different, right?
Can't be that tough.
Totally different, you know? So I showed up. I was super excited. You know, when you're young, you think you know everything, you know, you got a lot of energy. So I got into there, and I quickly understood I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah. How old were you at this point?
27. I think.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so quickly the crew decided I was not their guy. So they, you know, petered out. So literally I was like, I don't know how I got through it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So when you're young, you don't have much knowledge, but you got a lot of energy. And when you're old, you got a lot of knowledge, but not a lot of energy. So it's kind of that thing. So now I feel like I'm at the cross point. You know?
Yeah.
I feel like those two intersect.
Yes. Yes.
So it's taken 18 years to kind of figure out what I'm doing.
Wow.
But it was a struggle. It was definitely a struggle. I have no idea how I got through it, but you know, again, you're young.
Well, if you had to ponder that question, what do you think did get you through it?
You know, I was determined not to fail. You know, fear of failure has driven me for most of my life.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I'm like, I can't fail.
Where did that come from? Do you think, was that family or mentors?
I think that's a family thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like failure is not an option, right? So not only that, but I got an SBA loan, and my house was collateral and all those things.
Yeah, you got a lot riding on it. When it's your own baby, you got to figure it out.
Yeah, and my son at the time was 8 months old, so you know, I had to make it work.
Yeah, that is remarkable.
Yeah,
I love that you just stepped in and you're like, well, here we go, and I got this going on in my personal life, and I got to figure out something. And wow, so you started to rebuild the team. And what was that like? Was it easy to find great folks? Was that really challenging?
Terribly hard.
Yeah. I mean, so I guess 18 years ago wasn't very different than today is what you're telling us.
Yeah, it's still, and I didn't know much about it. So, you know, and I think probably my ignorance got me through it, you know, because I didn't know, you know, how bad a shape I was in.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm efficient, proficient, and so I figured it out.
Yeah.
But so finding people was a thing, and but I feel like, you know, things just kind of worked out.
Yeah.
You know, things fell into place. You know, I needed somebody, like I literally would have people just show up at my door and say they wanted a job. So
isn't that crazy? Well, the universe delivered. Yeah.
The universe definitely delivered.
For sure. So when you think back, you know, 18 years now, what were some of the biggest lessons that you learned, or you know, things that really shaped you and your business into what it is today?
I would say it was my ability to work with people that I didn't have, you know, and I'm a people person, and I chat with people and can do all that, but I didn't really know how to work with people.
Yeah.
So in order to really work with people and be, I would say, you know, emotionally intelligent or that kind of thing, because everyone's got a story, everyone's got their own world, and I've got 10 employees, and, you know, I'm managing all that, plus I'm meeting 50 new customers every week. So I got to manage that. So it's the ability to work with people that really had to grow. But in order to do that and, you know, be emotionally intelligent to work with people, I had to understand myself. So it's been a path of self-development.
So what did you do for that? That's my space and what I love. So I'd love to hear what did you do? You dive into books? Was it podcasts? Was it?
A lot of reading.
Yeah, a lot of reading. Okay.
A lot of reading, and then just a lot of genuine, authentic relationships.
Yeah.
So you can't, sometimes it's hard to see, you know, in my world, we call it shadow work. It's hard to see what's in your shadow. So you need help with that sometimes, you know? And so when you keep long-standing relationships with people, they can kind of see your pattern over the course of 15 years. You know, hey, we've been here before, Dave, like 5 years ago. Remember this, that, and the other? It's like, oh, yeah.
Guess so, yeah.
So you can it really brings to the surface some contrast of what you need to work on.
I love that. That deep work, you know, it's a lot of people will say it's a little woo-woo and out there. I will tell you, though, I'm in your camp where it's like, if you don't get to know yourself and figure out the things that work and continue to grow and improve those areas that are perhaps those blind spots, or you know, that's the name of the game for sure.
Well, and some people may think it's kind of woo, that kind of thing, but I think culture's changing. I think
you're absolutely
right. You know, it's like, you know, what is success? Well, you know, I think I got some success pretty young, and I wasn't happy.
Yeah.
So is that success? No, success is, you know, a meaningful life. I think success is really having a nervous system that you're comfortable in your own skin. Yeah. You know, and you're not tuning out, checking out, you know. I mean, there's workaholics, alcoholics, there's all kinds of holics out there. Because people just aren't happy.
It's so true. It's
So I think people are ready for a change. The biggest thing lately in my business is that, I wear my emotions on my sleeve. And, some people could criticize you for that. Like, suck it up kind of thing.
Yeah.
I decided, you know what? It's my business. I've been doing it 18 years. If I want to make this a heart-centered business, I am. And I'm going to wear my heart on my sleeve, and I'm going to ask customers to have a relationship with me versus treat me just like a vendor, And if they don't want to do that, that's okay. They can go somewhere else.
Yep.
This is how we do business here.
I love you. I love this, David, because this is everything that I love and everything I love to teach is that heart-centered leadership and how do you connect at a real level. And people will naturally be drawn to you and want to work with you because you actually care and you're real and you're authentic. And I think, to your point, there are so many people chasing this idea, whether it's the money or the fame or the fortune or the stuff.
Yeah.
And stuff is great, stuff is fine. And I think, is it Jim Carrey that said, I wish everyone would become wildly successful and have all the money and stuff in the world to realize that's not the answer to happiness.
Right.
And I believe you're absolutely right. It's how you treat people. It's about being comfortable in your own skin and doing work you love and connecting with other people. So I love that. I love that.
Just being regulated, and understanding your, that, why did I do that? Well, I was feeling fearful, and so I made a bad decision. Or why did I do that? Well, I was feeling greedy, or I was feeling a sense of lack. And so therefore I made a bad decision.
Yeah. And taking ownership of the decisions, good, bad, or ugly, and learning from them. And we're all going to make those mistakes and go, why did I do that? Where was it? Where was my head and my heart in that moment, and what led me to that? So I love that. And then there's a lot of people that, to your point, I think that there is much more of an evolution into this, wow, I better understand myself at a deeper level and connect at a deeper level and understand what this whole game of life is about in order to really, have that sense of purpose and fulfillment versus just achievement.
And I would say, too, in a leadership role, to really have a good awareness of yourself, because I have 10 employees. They've all got stories. And first of all, everybody wants to be known, right? Everybody wants to be known. They want to be truly seen for who they are. And so to truly, I take my guys, I'll take them to lunch on a regular basis just to, touch base, and so they want to be seen and they want to be known. But at the same time, it's kind of like a landlord with a tenant. Landlord doesn't want to be friends with a tenant because someday, if the rent is late, that landlord may have to put the screws to that tenant, right? Yeah. And if you're buddies, it's going to make the decision hard. But I think real leadership is being able to be buddies at the same time. If you got to play a hard line, say, hey, listen, we got a deal to pay the rent. Why are you not paying the rent? I can't have you here. I know we're friends.
Yeah.
But so how do you balance out being friends with your employees? And yet, as a boss, you have to hold them accountable at times.
Yeah. No, it's a good point, and it is a tough line to dance because you want to connect, especially someone who is outgoing and gregarious and really has a passion and care for your people, which is obvious from just this conversation. Yeah, you want to nurture and support them, and sometimes there are those difficult conversations, and that's part of it too.
And I think as long as everybody's in the know in the relationship, when the relationship's set up, is like, we're going to talk about things that neither of us want to talk about.
Yeah.
But you got to do that, because all relationships will break down for lack of communication. Doesn't matter if it's a spouse, a boss, an employee, whatever it is. So we have to talk, and a lot of times people avoid conversation, and that's when people start making assumptions and why do they treat me like this, and people tell themselves, and myself included, all kinds of stories.
Yeah.
So it's having that awareness.
Absolutely. I love this. And bringing that into your business is so key too, because a lot of people, I don't know, at least the things that I hear are so much, well, just leave work at work. And it's like, it just doesn't work that way. You're one human being with one life. These worlds intersect, like it or not. So how do you become better in both, to be your best in both?
Right. And there was kind of like, because, you play a lot of roles. I'm a boss, I'm a dad, all these different roles in life. I'm a friend to somebody, and so, how does that fit, integrity between all of them?
Yeah.
Do you show up to work differently?
Yeah.
Or are you yourself? Well, that's work. I just put on a costume there. Or no, can you be your authentic you at work?
Yeah. I love that. That's so true. So true. And so when you look at your life and your career, was there a certain mentor or someone that really was pivotal in your growth and development?
I would say lots.
Mm-hmm.
I've always kept my eyes peeled. My last boss that I worked for when I sold the HVAC equipment, he was an open door. He'd say, hey, this is how I run business. He would tell me, he would share with me. And even when I quit the job, because I called him on a Friday and I quit, and he said, thank you. I said, thank you. I thought I was quitting, like he'd be upset at me or something like that. He goes, yeah. He goes, you're an entrepreneur. And I'm glad I could have you for as long as I had you.
Wow.
And so that was cool. But, even today I can, pick up the phone and call him and say, hey, I got this situation going on. So I had all kinds of mentors, different bosses along the way were some of the people that imparted wisdom into me, but I was also willing to listen.
Yeah.
I couldn't just know it all, because sometimes if someone knows it all, I don't even bother.
Yeah.
But when you have somebody that's hungry to learn, that's a great day for me.
That is the best. And even, after, as long as you've been doing what you do, and for me, same thing, doing what I do, there's always something to learn from every conversation, from every interaction, from everything. And I do feel like oftentimes folks are like, oh, I know this, or I've done this, and it becomes almost like a closed door. And it's like, oh my gosh, leave that door open, because you just never know what you're going to learn if you keep your mind open to it. So I love that. I love that. Well, I have a series of questions that I wanted to ask you that I love to ask guests on the Leadership Lowdown, just so people can get to know you a little bit more. So, Mr. David Riccio, what is your favorite word?
Oh my gosh, that is a real on the spot question.
I know it is.
Yeah.
Hence the point of it.
I know. Authentic.
I love that. So, do you have a least favorite word?
A least favorite word would be anything critical. So not necessarily one word, but, oh yeah, that guy, he's an idiot. People say stuff like that.
Got it. So labeling people with
labeling,
some kind of
anything judgmental, because judgment is what separates us as people. If we take that out, we're gonna meet everybody where they are.
Absolutely. Love that. What turns you on, either creatively, spiritually, emotionally? Just what lights you up?
I would say people definitely light me up. I like genuine, authentic conversation and taking the time. For me, I kind of live in an empathic world. So, while I may wear my emotions on my sleeve, when someone tells me a story, I jump into their story because I get to gain all the beauty of their experience just by feeling into their story. So that makes life, and it could be happy, sad, indifferent, doesn't matter. But just to be able to get behind other people's eyes and enjoy life that way. Because for me, it's all about making life rich. If it's just all my way and just the way I see the world, it's kind of boring.
Yeah.
So let me see some different perspective. Let me add some color and texture by getting every person I knew. It brings me a new story or a new piece, something I can value take with me and borrow from.
I love that, because you're right. There is so much that's just sort of transactional, and it's like, gosh, how do we get the depth and breadth and the good juicy stuff out of life? It's through those interactions. Absolutely.
And not everybody wants to go there.
No,
right?
no,
they don't
not at all.
Go there. But I love to interview people, and so I often road test with customers, and usually I can get past whatever wall they got. To find them, to get conversation, to have commonality.
Yeah. Well, and it's so funny that you say that, because I do truly believe that when people can just take a breath, let the wall down, going back to your word authentic, and just be open. Just be open. It's like every door opens, new thoughts, new ideas, new insights, new realizations. And then what you get to do with that knowledge from, again, stepping in someone else's shoes, seeing it through their eyes. It's like, that to me is the essence of life. So I love hearing this from a car guy.
From a car, I know. It's a different sort of car place. I tell my people every day, it's a social experiment.
I love this. I love everything about
this.
We
break all the kind of like traditional rules about how you run a business.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
well, you do it the right way. Clearly. I love that. So what turns you off?
What turns me off in regard to the world business, or
sure,
I have to qualify that?
In general, I guess.
In general,
or either way.
I think some people are really shut down, because for me, what makes life rich is relationship, and I think negative, critical turns me off.
Yeah.
If something's negative and critical, it doesn't feel good. I just generally go with what feels good in my body. And negative and critical don't feel good. And sometimes when I'm interacting with people, I got a couple ways to try and make connection. But if I'm interacting and, my normal go-tos don't work, I'm ready to move on.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm like,
So for you in your world, if you have that, I don't want to say irate customer, not necessarily irate with you, but just maybe irate with the world.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
This is probably a little too honest for this podcast, but I love to tell people when they're misbehaving.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And not that I'm some authority, but at least to like to give them some perspective.
Yeah.
So they walk away and go, huh? Because people have done that for me when I had blind spots, things I couldn't see. And so it's actually a really loving thing to do.
Yeah.
I had an employee one time that quit. His name was Randy, and he quit on the second day of the job, and we were super busy. And I said, why today of all days are you quitting? He said, because you're an asshole.
Oh.
I hope I can say that on this podcast.
It'll be bleeped out if not.
So I said, okay, that's interesting. Tell me more. And he told me about what he knew and all the work that he had done. And I said, okay, well, if that's the case, why don't you stay and help me not behave like that? And so that was the beginning of my journey of looking at how I behave.
Interesting.
So when I come across people who are just, sometimes you just bypass, because there's no value there. There's nothing happening. But sometimes, to bring people perspective, if you can, because I love to create aha moments in people where they go, oh, wow, I never saw that.
Love that.
If you had people create aha moments for you.
Oh my. Daily, the work I do is aha moments, right?
Right.
Leadership, training, development, heart-based, it's all about that. So I love that because people have done that for me and I love to do that for others. So right in your same camp, David, because it's about that too, because again, we can go through life like the horses with blinders on and stay in our own little, myopic world, or we can say, wait a minute, what else is out there?
Right.
And sometimes it is that difficult conversation or that someone kind of holding up the mirror and going, hey, you're being a jerk.
Right.
More politically correct term. So no, just teasing you. But when you have that opportunity for someone to actually give you the gift of that feedback, and I always look at feedback as a gift. I'm like, hey, tell me what I don't see, or tell me how to get better. Because if it's like the employee that gets the annual review, and then it's like, well, 7 months ago with that client, you did X, Y, and Z. It's like, well, that's not fair to that person. If you waited 7 months to give them that feedback, that's not fair. So I'm with you. It's like, give me the feedback up front so I can be better and do more, something more better, differently. Yeah, moving forward. So I love that. What sound or noise do you love?
Wow, these are fun questions.
I told you it was going to be fun.
Yeah, what sound or
noise do you love?
Quiet.
Oh, okay. The sound of silence.
The sound of silence is
Simon and
beautiful.
Garfunkel.
I like to watch sunsets.
Okay.
And for me, I feel like there's somewhat of a noise to a sunset, and it changes moment by moment.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So what do you mean by that, noise to sunset?
And I think there is, because the sun, produces a ton of energy, right? And so moment by moment as it drops, it's changing. And to me, I almost feel like it makes noise. And then when it goes away, it's gone.
Cool. That's really cool. I love that.
And it's kind of a silent moment. But, But that's the way I envision it in my mind's eye.
That's awesome. I've never heard that before, and I love it. I love it. Is there a sound or noise that you hate?
When I was young, I would love, the first thing I would do with a car or a bike, dirt bike, was just make it loud. And now, the old guys used to get mad at me as a kid. I'm like, why is that guy so grouchy?
Yeah.
And now I'm that guy.
You're like, I am Sir Grouchy.
Yeah. So I hate loud exhaust. To me, it's like,
That's interesting. So it went from a love to a hate.
Oh, yeah, totally.
I guess when you're around it all the time, too, you're kind of like, ugh.
Yeah, exactly.
That makes sense. So if there was a profession other than your own that you would love to attempt or be a part of, what would that be?
I love things that are creative, and I'm creative in my own business. I'm building things and I'm doing things, and that's part of it. But creativity to me is what makes life sweet. So if you can have a career where you can be creative, that would be fun.
Nice.
So I would imagine it would be, I do photography for fun on the side. That's a creative outlet for me. I don't know that I wouldn't want to go make a living out of doing photography because it's fun right now.
Yeah.
If it was like work, I don't know if I would like it.
Like it as much, right?
But generally, I just enjoy people. So somewhere in the people business would be what I would do.
Awesome.
Podcasting is something that comes up.
Yeah.
I love to interview people.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Find a way
You and
to
me
do that.
both, my friend. You and me both.
Right?
I love this. I could literally do this all day, every day. I love it. It's just a passion project of mine, but I love it. So.
Well, you get to know all kinds of people.
Exactly. And it's people that, for me, same thing, inspire me. So I love that. Is there a profession that you think, oh my gosh, that would be the worst or I would never want to do?
The worst or I would never want to do? I think anything monotonous. Doesn't change. There's no adventure to it.
Yeah, punch in, punch out.
Punch in, punch out.
Yeah.
If I could go back to your last question, I think I would love to be an actor.
Oh, nice. Okay.
That would be fun.
Yeah.
I think it'd be fun. Actor or something like that.
Something in the entertainment, maybe space. Awesome. Okay. And then just anything monotonous would be the. I get you. I couldn't sit in a cube all day. That wouldn't be my personality either. But there's many people that thrive in that. So that's good. That's good. We all have our thing. And lastly, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Well, for me, that would be hard. I think heaven and earth exist right here, right? You think about your child was being born. Was that not heaven?
Yeah.
Right?
100%.
And then you think of maybe your child got hurt. Is that not hell? But yeah, if there was a proverbial heaven, and I showed up there, what would I want to hear? The traditional people say, well done, my servant, or whatever, something like that. So I would say just great job.
Yeah.
Because to me, life this is a school for the soul. That's what life is.
I never thought that my conversation with you would be so deep and awesome. I love it. I love it.
Right?
I love it. Well, and here's the thing, and this is what I love just in the short time we've gotten to know each other, David, is that there's a depth. And, in so much of the work that we as humans do, going back to very transactional, this for that, that for this, when there's a depth of human connection and you feel that, it's just unique. And so I love that you bring that into an industry that wouldn't be the first that you would think of as this heart-based business.
Right.
So I love that you really lead from a different place and a unique place. So kudos to you.
Right.
Kudos
Thank
to
you very much.
I love it. I love it. Being that this is the Leadership Lowdown, I would love to wrap with just do you have like a word of wisdom or something that you would want to leave listeners or viewers with that, I don't know, would just be that thing that you'd be like, hey, that's something that everyone I would love to leave them with, that little nugget.
When I was a kid, my mom would tell me, she'd say, oh, you're a leader. And I'm like, whatever, because your mom, yeah, sure.
Sure, Mom.
You think I'm handsome. And,
I'm great and I'm the best.
Yeah, all that stuff. And I'm a leader. And, growing up, I was always in trouble in school. I went to a Christian school as a kid. I was invited to leave in the 7th grade.
Invited to leave. I love it.
But because I had a personality and I was meant to lead and I didn't necessarily fit, I didn't feel okay in a seat. I wanted to be up front. Yeah. Doing that kind of stuff. So I think that leadership is an internal work. And especially when you lead, the thing I've noticed over my career is that when I first got in the business, I didn't have a lot of awareness. I was somewhat harsh in a lot of ways, in somewhat of a brutal boss. And I didn't really see it because I was always smiling and was always nice to people. But people communicate threefold. They communicate verbally, we're talking. They communicate physically, we're nodding our heads. But the other way they communicate is energetically. And for me, I was a person that had that fear of failure. And in that word shame is that like nagging voice in the back of our head that tells us there's something wrong with us. And I think everybody has it. I haven't met anybody who doesn't.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of that in my life, but that tended to make me a jerk, And so when I say leadership is an inner work, as I developed as a person, I noticed that I got better employees, people that wanted to work for me. And so as my business has grown, my own growth is probably the number one part of being a good leader.
100%.
And it's not just results based. Like people say, what's success? Well, it's some metric, hey, with this much in sales, this much in profitability, this much in good feedback. So you could look at that metric, but if success is I want a fulfilling life and I want a job that I'm proud of, then you got to go do the work on yourself.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, preaching to the choir here, because I am 100% on board with you on that. And I do believe it is the cornerstone to leadership is how self-aware are you and how much are you willing to learn, grow, and improve. I mean, I really do believe that. And so what a pleasure to hear from such an amazing story and background and all the work that you continue to do, not only in your business, but on yourself. So I love that. I love that. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Appreciate it,
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, just a pleasure. And with that, this has been the Leadership Lowdown with Jodi Low. That's me. And pleasure to have you here. Pleasure to have you here, David. Thank you for tuning in. And remember to stay curious and keep leading with love.